the number one rule I tell people when they're going into court, especially young lawyers, if you walk into a new courtroom or a new courthouse or a new judge, don't speak for like half an hour if you can. Don't speak. Just look around, see how people are acting, see how they're responding with him or her, or what flies, what doesn't fly.
So, hey, Danny Rosenberg, welcome to the You Are Lawyer podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm really well. So I don't want to say that you were embarrassed, but the last time we tried to chat, you were coming from court and you were in your car.
I
thought it was awesome because lawyers are busy, right? We're not just sitting one place stationary. And so, yeah, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your career?
Well, my name is Danny Rosenberg. Thanks for having me on. I own a litigation firm. I started out criminal defense, and I still do a lot of criminal defense work. I have a partner that does civil litigation, and now we have 8 lawyers that work for us. So we have different divisions in the law firm. We have a division that, of course, does criminal defense, a division that does family law, and a division that does business and real estate litigation only. So that's what we do. We have 8 lawyers. I think we have 5 support staff, and that's what we do. I've been doing it for 21 years or so, something like that. So busy.
Yeah. So when you were in law school, did you always want to own your own firm?
Yeah. So I started law school late. My father was in the retail business, so I opened a couple stores with him, and I was doing that for a while. And then I wanted to go to law school. I went to law school at like 27. I just got married, so I'd already been like opening stores and been the owner of the business, so I knew I was going to work for myself. So I started interning with the public defender's office because I wanted to try cases, so learn how to try cases quickly. My 3rd year I started, and I was a certified legal intern, which means Supreme Court of Florida approves you to speak in court as long as you have an attorney with you. So I started doing that, trying cases, and I was hired by them as soon as I passed the bar. I tried 10 cases, 11 cases, and I left. Immediately went out in private practice in criminal defense, and here I am. Still going.
Wow, okay. So a little bit more detail. Did you know any lawyers before you went to law school?
Yeah, I work with lawyers for the company, closing attorneys, and as a company, we were in litigation, so I did know lawyers. Not any friends, they were older than me, but I did know lawyers, and, I was told all my life, you be a good lawyer, but come to find out that probably wasn't a compliment. Usually you tell a kid that when they're arguing or that, or they're a little too mouthy, but yeah, so when I was not that good of a student in undergrad, but then when I got to law school, I kind of just understood what these people wanted from me, and I understood the concept and the way to think, and I did very well. So I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing,
Yeah. So I went to law school at 28, and I think the fact that you went at 27 probably changed some of your mindset in law school, right? Because we're adults.
For sure. It's scary. You remember the first year, it's kind of scary. I bet for a 21-year-old, it's all the more scary, But yeah, I think I was able to focus more. I just got married. I was, not through the partying years, but not really, going out nightly anymore and doing all that kind of stuff so I could focus. It definitely helped, and I had my eye on the ball, so.
Yeah. So, all right, always wanted to run your own firm, got into law school, it just really made sense to you.
Yep. And
what are some of the biggest challenges that you see in running your business now, 21 years later, versus when you first started?
Well, first of all, running any business is challenging, and I came from running a different kind of business to this business. The law is hard because it's, a lot of thought. You have a lot of clients that you answer to, so it's very stressful, and the caseload, it's just heavy work. It's heavy work. There's no easy way to say it. The longer you do it, the less stressed you get about the actual work itself. But the business side of it is always very. So I still think that's the hardest side of it all is the business. You have to always make money. You have to always have good people. You have to hire. You have to fire. You have to be available at the drop of a dime. Like my wife always says to me, just don't answer your phone. And in these days, that just doesn't happen for lawyers. I tried to explain that. I guess there's some that do it, and hats off to those people. But it's not me, because I find if I don't answer the phone and I look down for a while, it's just everything's on fire. So that's the most difficult thing. But I think it's gotten. You have to get this groove, as you know, where you get in the groove. I remember when I was a public defender, when you're a brand new public defender, they walk you into they just throw you in court. There's no better way to say it. They throw you in court and they hand you 200 files. And they're like, here, these are yours. And I'm like, what do you mean these are mine? I don't know what the hell I'm doing, you know? And they're like, no, these are yours. And your clients are calling you, and the baby mamas and the brothers and the cousins and everybody's calling you. And you walk into court and the judge's like, all right, you ready for trial? You ready for trial? On all these cases, you never even met anybody. I remember I walked in one of my supervisor's office like the first week, like just like done. I'm like, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to survive, you know? And she laughed. She was like, yeah, one day you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You just got to get your groove. And now I literally walk into court with like a pen in my pocket and I handle all the cases. You know, you just get better at it. You know, you get better at it and you get more comfortable, just like anything, you know?
Yeah. You get better, you get more comfortable, but also with that time and expertise, now you've put in the hours that you can just walk in with a pen, right?
Yeah,
you don't need as much prep or whatever. Yeah.
Right. You got to get better at everything. I mean, it's just like, it's called the practice of law for a reason. Just like I tell people the practice of medicine, like I'll meet like law students that are throwing, you know, they're throwing theories at me, and that's cute. And it's important to understand it. But like when you practice, oh, well, you know, you also get laymen that think they read a case or sometimes a criminal case, they went to prison, so they think they're experts. You know, it's like, well, the law says this. I'm like, yeah, but that's not how it works in court. What do you mean? Because the judges don't accept that, or the prosecutors don't like that argument, or he gets shot down. Or there's the judge. This judge tends to lean this way, or this judge tends to lean that way, or you have to do this, and you have to just get to read the lay of the land, and that only comes through practice. You know, there's literally judges I know, you don't button the top collar, you're going to lose your case. Like, it's that simple sometimes, you know? So that's just learning. You have to learn. For young lawyers that want to learn to try cases, I always recommend going either to like the state attorney, the district attorney's office, or the public defender's office. I mean, even if you don't want to do criminal, there's no real other place that's just going to throw you in trials like that. Like, because they're just so overwhelmed. They're just like, here, go, you know, and there's just no better way to learn. I mean, I think you make some mistakes along the way, but just like anything, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I live in Ohio now, but I went to law school in Louisiana, and I remember it was the 19th JDC, the Judicial District, and one judge, you had to wear pantyhose. And I'm like, it's like 2015. Are you serious? And they're like, get out of my court. You have to come back with pantyhose on. And you're just like, not even pants? I have to have with a skirt. And I'm just like, man, but those are the rules.
But yeah, I mean, I go in front of the court every day. You know, a lot of lawyers don't do that. The number one rule I tell people when they're going into court, especially young lawyers, if you walk into a new courtroom or a new courthouse or a new judge, don't speak for like half an hour if you can. Don't speak. Just look around. See how people are acting. See how they're responding with him or her, or, you know, what flies, what doesn't fly. You got to learn all that. I remember I had experience with a judge up in St. Lucie County in Florida, which is a really tough county if you're a defense attorney because they're very, very harsh. And there was a judge who was just outrageous. He was a lunatic. And it took me a while to figure, not in a while. I went in, I watched, and he would do his arrest, like his first appearance, they call it, the first appearance arrest, which most times that's a separate courtroom with a separate judge. But this judge did his own. So I literally watched him hold like 5 people in contempt of court for things like walking away from the camera too early, or because it was on Zoom for the first appearance. They always did him in camera from the jail. And I watched him hold so many people in contempt of court, and then I watched how he treated the lawyers. Just a nasty, nasty judge, right? And I knew every time I'd go there, I'd call my colleagues, like, listen, if you don't hear from me in like an hour, check the jail logs, okay? Because this guy, he used to throw lawyers in jail routinely. So then months after I get a call from it's called the BAC, Broward County Defense Lawyer Association. There's always the defense bar has, we have their own, like almost like a fraternity or sorority or whatever it is, or where everybody's protecting each other, you know? And they said, hey, Danny, we need you in St. Lucie. So-and-so just got thrown in jail, another lawyer. And I was like, oh, no. What judge? And I knew, and he told me, and I'm like, oh, God, what did he say? So this guy went in there, and he literally, like, walked up to the prosecutor's table and asked him for an offer, and they gave him a very harsh offer where anywhere else it wouldn't have been that harsh. And he just was like, instead of recognizing or learning the personnel, got immediately cocky. He was like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's a stupid offer. And this judge is known to throw people in jail. He didn't know. He didn't read the room. And they're like, well, you can talk to the judge about it. He goes, I will. right? They just like, go ahead, go throw him to the wolves, you know? And he walked up there, and I think their offer to him was like 30 days in jail. And he listened, and he berated their prosecutors. He said, oh, they're being ridiculous, judge, blah, blah, blah. And he said, all right, well, what's the maximum? He said 90. He goes, all right, I'm sentencing your guy to 90 days in jail. So the lawyer just broke out, Jesus Christ, real loud, and that was a big no-no. And he put him in jail. He held him in contempt of court and put him in jail. We had to go get him out, all of us. 50 lawyers had to ride up and try to get this guy out because he didn't know how to keep his mouth shut. But that's why I tell people, read the room. That's the number one skill, I think, in a lot of businesses, but especially law.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're laughing, but it's comical just because the judge is in charge. That is their space. That is their space, right? Judges go to school and they learn all these things about what they're supposed to do, but then most of it is theirs to kind of play with, and that is their space. If they don't want you saying Jesus Christ in there, they don't want you saying it. So
it's just personality quirks. I have a podcast too where we have a bunch of us litigators. We sit on, we talk about some of the stories, you know. You say they go to school. They don't really go to school. How many times have you been in front of a judge that doesn't know what the hell they're talking about? You're like, oh my God, that's a scary thing too, right? You're like, oh God, how do I not insult this person? They're kind of winging it, and they just all have their own personality quirks. You just have to understand. Some of them are harsh, a lot of them are reasonable. You just have to really feel out where you are, you know. And what's scary to me is that they move them around. Like you'll have a judge that'll be a criminal for 10 years, and then they'll just throw them in family court. To me, that always blew my mind.
Yeah. So you mentioned this, and then I want to talk about your podcast. You said when you talk to young lawyers, do you teach anywhere, or do you just kind of mentor informally?
No, I'm not teaching right now formally, but, you know, I mentor every chance I get. I've trained a lot of lawyers come to me, especially ones that go out in private practice, because they kind of watch me as like the model of how to do it. Because a lot of these, the public defender will tell them, oh, you need to be here 5 years before you're ready. They'll make all, that's between you and I don't know if I can swear, but that's BS, right? That's not true. I'll take them all at lunch. You know, people that go out in private practice say, hey, can I pick your brain? And I have young lawyers that work for me now that ask me questions all the time. So I am training them. That's what older lawyers did for me. You know, I remember older lawyers took me out to lunch and I'd let me pick their brain. And, you know, that's just like anything. You have to really find people that you trust or that you see are doing it and then learn. And that's the only way. It's the ones that aren't willing to learn or have the big egos or, you know, the young lawyers also think they have to fight everything, right? You know, like, how long have you been a lawyer? How long have you been a lawyer? Since 2015?
10 years.
You're out there now, right? Now you'll run into like a younger lawyer and you'll be like, okay, you need to calm down. Sometimes be nice. Most times be nice. No reason to just go and break. It just doesn't work. And that comes from experience though too, and having good mentors.
It does. And it's funny because I'll meet people now and they all think that I'm quiet, but the truth is I'm reading the room. But that's something I had to learn because when I got out of law school, I was like, I'm the expert. Hello, I'm here. And you're like, oh, I'm not. I was the expert in law school, maybe in that one class, right? Like, I'm not the expert anymore. I have to like watch. Yeah.
The funny thing is like, you know, the judges don't know the law. Like we joke as criminal defense attorneys about hearsay. You know, there's like, to layman listening, you know, hearsay, you might know what it is, but there's like 15 exceptions. I don't remember the number even more. A bunch of exceptions to hearsay, right? But I promise you the judges don't know half of them. You know, and a lot of times, a lot of lawyers don't know half of them. So it's just about how well you can articulate your argument, how well you can sell the person on your argument. The knowledge is key, but I know plenty of great lawyers that aren't successful. You know, I mean, smart lawyers aren't successful and could not run a business. You know, it's a different thing completely.
Yeah, the knowledge is like the bare minimum, actually. It's not even really the foundation. It's like the bare minimum. So
Right. It comes from practice and learning and trial and error. That's what I tell people all the time. And I still go through every morning. I never know what I'm walking into, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good perspective to have with it. So did you create the podcast so that you could share with a larger audience a lot easier?
Well, but the podcast is called Two Taps and Friends. It's all over. It's on Spotify, YouTube. It comes from a nickname, Two Taps. It's not like beer taps. One of my friends a long time ago noticed that when I was telling him a story, I'd be tapping them on the arm, you know, like tapping. So they nicknamed me Two Taps. So it's Two Taps and Friends. But I don't just stay in law. I mean, a lot of times we bring litigators because we can, especially in the criminal defense world, it's a lot of funny conversations and stories. We talk about judges, and a lot of people we learn that judges are listening to it, so we have to be very careful not to name names, you know. But yeah, we do all kinds of different. I started. It's funny as you ask, as a hobby more than anything, not for any like marketing or anything like that. I just was so burnt out working and working and working, and I believe in therapy. You know, for all lawyers, I think lawyers should be in therapy. I think it's good for your head. And my therapist, I just lost my mom. I was going through a lot, and the therapist asked me like, "What do you do for fun anymore?" And I used to play basketball, but when you get older, that gets you injured, so I can't really do that as much anymore. So like, what do you do for a hobby? What do you like doing? I'm like, oh, I like sitting around talking with friends. So we started the podcast, and I've been doing it for a hobby, but it's gained traction. It's doing very well. And it's funny, you get other lawyers on there. I feel like we all have so many stories that are just stored in our hard drive. And after a while, they get deleted because we have to make room for new stories, you know? But it's like an outlet for everybody to kind of tell their stories. Lawyers are also petrified to tell their stories, too. Like, you don't want to violate this ethical rule. You got to be, you know. So we do it in a fun way. We were making sure, like, if I feel like you're about to violate some ethical rule, I'm going to shut you down real quick. You know?
Or you can edit it out.
Yeah, but I mean, on the fly, I'll be like, don't say a name. You know, don't do this, don't do that. You'll see me on that podcast correcting people. Oh, let's move on. You know, if it gets a little, the rating isn't good, I'll move you on. You know. So,
right.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, whenever I tell people about this podcast, they're like, "How can you do that? Are you sure? What does your state say about your NPRE?" And I'm like, "It depends." The lawyer answer, it depends, right? And it's like, we're talking about everything else. We're not getting into that small couple minute definitions about how you can't market or advertise. Like this, it's bigger. Right. But you know, most lawyers are rule followers. So we like to make sure we're, you know, within the line. So.
And that's the thing also with entrepreneurship and law. Like it's a hybrid when you get a lawyer that can run a business, because lawyers are risk averters, right? They're not risk takers for the most part. The idea of law is to avert risk, right? When you're advising your client, but an entrepreneur is a risk taker. So when you get that hybrid, you want to make them your partner, is what I joke. You know, like if you find a hybrid, get them to partner up with you. You know, because most of the lawyers aren't wired in that way. You know, my father owned business all his life. He used to joke the lawyers are the worst businessmen, he would say. That's what he would say.
The worst because we're the best.
Yes. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's like, don't listen to them. They tell you everything's a bad idea. That's what he used to say. You
No,
know?
so I was still working in big law when I started this show. And believe it or not, I had no idea I was going to actually end up leaving, which sounds really silly that I would talk to people about everything they do outside of the law, and then I would be surprised that I would leave. But I really love my firm. I love what I was doing in IP law. But I think that lawyers should take more risk. Like, if we know how to mitigate the risk, that should make us riskier. I really do believe it. That's my whole mission of this show. Like, take more risk because you know you'll always be fine. Like,
especially if you're not doing bad things. This is what I tell people all the time. People are worried about the bar, and I'm like, listen, here's what I've learned. Don't steal, right? Don't steal. Don't go crazy on people if you can. You know, sometimes that happens. But you know what I mean? Like, don't do the right thing. Don't do shady things. Don't steal. Don't mess around with trusted. Don't play games like that. They're not concerned about you. I don't know that you do your podcast to market. You do the podcast because you enjoy it, right? You enjoy it. You get to meet all kinds of new people. I would have never met you if you weren't doing a podcast. Where are you located? Where are you right now?
Columbus, Ohio.
You're in Columbus, Ohio. Like, last time I was Columbus, Ohio, I was at Ohio State. I started off at Ohio State. I went there for 2 years and transferred. So, I mean, it's just you get to meet people from all walks of life. It's a lot of fun. And if that helps with your business, great. But it's not, you're not sending a direct mailer.
And even to your point, I've been to Port St. Lucie twice. Most people don't even know where it is, but my best friend used to live there. So, like, how else would these paths have crossed? Like, just do it. Plus, like, the rules on direct mailings are kind of weak now because people don't even check their mail.
Yeah,
so,
mailing, now it's all the website.
Right. So just do it. Funny thing is, my friends and I, like, when you go out to eat and you want to talk about someone, you hit them on their leg, 2 taps. So I think that's really funny, that 2 taps and
right.
So, Danny, would you have called yourself creative before starting a podcast, before being a lawyer, before all of it?
I would have. I wouldn't have said that was predominantly creative, but I get creative in solving problems. I'm a problem solver. I think that all good lawyers are problem solvers. So I can get creative when I need to. If I just had to sit here and get creative about an idea that wasn't part of a problem, not so much. My wife is an artist. She's like a very, very good artist, and like to watch her, she's creative, like the definition of creative. But if you give me a problem, I'm going to solve it. So there's an element of creativity to that, I would say for sure.
Yeah. Well, after this, you get to go to your wife and be like, guess what? I'm creative too. Because
Yeah.
I think the way that we're able to like read case law, look at a set of facts, and it's different. And that all of that is creativity, right? The 50 lawyers who went to get your friend out, y'all had to use creativity. Like, we just don't see it that way. I feel like lawyers would be afraid of it if we said we were being creative. Instead, we're researching and analyzing.
I agree. And it's funny, like you could look at something and think something completely different from case law. That's what you find when you're going against other lawyers. They make arguments. You're like, what? That's not what I saw there. That's not what I hear there. And you're like, oh, well, that's what I read, So there is an element of that,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, Danny. So my last question here, and I ask every guest that comes on, what would you say to a young lawyer, 5 years practicing or less, or a law student about what they could do with their law degree?
I would say run. I'm joking. But honestly, a law degree to me is probably the strongest thing that you could have. You and I could literally go to any other state, take a quick thing, and practice all over the country. It's taught you a way to think, and you need to get to a point where you're being paid for your brain, and that's it. And just kind of think of it that way. Like after 5 years, you should be at a point where you're able to, be paid for your talking skills and your brain. There's endless opportunities, and you could literally learn new fields at any given point. Don't think because you've been doing something for 5 years if that's not something that's doing it for you, try something differently. That's it. I've been owning a litigation firm with different fields. Sometimes a change is what is a refresher. Like it's refreshing for me to all of a sudden start talking about contract law with my partner. In law school they pave your mind with all these different routes. I think that just stay the course. And what I tell people though is it's cross country, not track. So you can be doing it for a long time. Pace yourself. If you feel burnout, take a break. If you need to even take on less, take on less. So that would be my advice is just remember you're going to be doing this for a long time because there's going to be plenty of times in your career where you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Because it's very, very stressful. But just if you pace yourself and it's a blessing to be able to be paid for your brain and your talking skills. So just remember that.
Yeah, and I think the value coming at 5 years, I think that's really smart because I started this podcast 5 years out of school. And now it's been 5 years since. And it's like, that's true, right? Because like you're working for someone, you're like, oh, no, I could do this anywhere. And then you realize how transferable they are. And you can literally take them anywhere.
Right. It's the best. Don't get too burnt out. Take care of yourself. I recommend therapy. I do. It sounds crazy, but I recommend people take care of their mental health as much as you can and, take care of everything because you can be doing it for a while, especially if you're successful. That's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Danny.
For having me.
Thank you.